Hey there, welcome to Hiker Homily. And this time we're going to talk about, as you remember, a little while ago I did one on um, hypothermia. We're going to go the other direction now and talk about heat exhaustion, which, if left untreated, can become heat stroke, which is a fairly serious, if not fatal, situation. And kind of appropriate nature. When I did the hypothermia thing, it was a fairly warm day out in the old backyard. I'm in the backyard backcountry, um, self-sheltering during this fine quarantine that we're still in. Um, and it was a fairly warm day when I did hypothermia. So here we are, of course, for the heat exhaustion episode that I'm going to shoot, and it's kind of chilly and it rained last night. What are you going to do? It's early May when I'm filming this, and it's just the way things are. So here we are. Now for heat exhaustion, I'm going to remind you like I did with hypothermia. This is one subject that I actually do know something about. I was a first responder, first aid, CPR, AED instructor for almost 15 years in my previous career before I retired, and so this kind of stuff I know a little bit about. I'm not going to call myself an expert or any of that kind of ego stuff, but I do know about first aid. I do. I taught it, like I said, for 15 years. I've got practical experience. I've had to treat people many times with various things, done CPR on people and things like that. So yeah, I kind of know what's going on there. So we're going to go over some of the symptoms for one thing, because like I said with hypothermia, this is one of those things where everyone's talking all the time. Oh, if you're going to go out there in the summertime, blah blah, watch out for the heat, watch out for heat exhaustion, watch out for this, watch out. Okay, but most of the time that's all they say is, hey, watch out for this. But they don't tell you what to look for. They don't tell you what to do if you see the signs of it and things like that. So we're going to go over that a little bit here. So heat exhaustion. Some of the more common symptoms: profuse sweating. Okay, I get that anytime I hike. I understand that. So that's, again, this is not a checklist that you just, okay, you've got this, you've got this, you've got, okay, out of these such and such many things, you've got all but 3 of them. So because you don't have those 3, that means you're fine. That's not how it works. It's, every person is going to respond differently to this kind of a medical crisis. Not everyone's going to have every single one of these. Some people are only going to have maybe half of these. You're going to have to actually look at it and make a judgment on how they're acting and things like that. So, profuse sweating. A lot of us get that when we're out there hiking anyway, no matter whether we have heat exhaustion or not, right? Okay, I was gardening yesterday. I had profuse sweating, let me tell you. Pale skin. Confusion and disorientation, that's always a big one. If you come across or you start to get confused and disorientated, you need to try and focus your mind and realize you are having a problem. If you're out there by yourself and you're starting to get kind of disorientated, you need to try and focus as best you can on what's happening to your body, because you are having problems. If you're hiking with somebody else who starts acting confused and kind of fuzzy-headed and things like that, that's one of the signs, one of the big signs. You need to start doing something right there. You need to start cooling them off. We're going to talk about that in just a sec. Dizziness, dark yellow urine, which is also an indicator of dehydration, which kind of goes hand in hand with heat exhaustion. And I'm going to do a whole nother episode on actual dehydration, because that's not just a heat thing, but it definitely, when you do have the heat exhaustion going on, that becomes part of it, is dehydration. That's what starts doing some of the damage to you. Fatigue, headache can come with heat exhaustion. Abdominal, muscle cramps, you start cramping up. Nausea, vomiting, maybe diarrhea. Now everybody's like, this is backpacking for me. This is what I do when I backpack. Okay, I'm sorry. Rapid heartbeat, maybe even you lose consciousness, fainting, and things like that. So those are some of the main things to look for in someone else on the trail, or to watch out for yourself. Now, you start seeing symptoms like that. What are you going to do about heat exhaustion? Well, as best as you can. Now remember, like what I talked about with the hypothermia thing, when you're way out in the backcountry, you are going to be limited into some of these options that you can do, but you got to do what you have to. Okay, so you're going to try to immediately get this person or yourself into a cool place, inside if you can, or out of the sunshine in real shade. I mean, just a little bit of, if you're in the middle of the desert and you have a saguaro cactus to hide behind, that's probably not going to work. You need to get them out of the heat into some real coolness, or into a real grove of trees, real shade, in order to actually start bringing that core temperature down. This is just like the hypothermia. We're talking about the core temperature, how it got too low and you were trying to raise it up. This is the exact opposite. It's that core temperature you're worried about. The body's natural cooling systems aren't able to keep up with what's happening to it, and it's going to start shutting things down. That's why you start getting the fainting spells, the dizziness, headaches and things because of that. So you need to get them into a cool place to start bringing that down. If you can and they are conscious, remember what I said for hypothermia, don't give liquids to anybody unconscious. It's crazy I have to say stuff like that, but it's got to be said. If they're unconscious, you don't give them liquids. If they are conscious and able to do so, go ahead, give them liquids. Water is the best. If you can get some electrolytes in them, that's fine, but definitely get cool water into them. Avoid alcohol and caffeine. Both of those things aren't gonna help. They both kind of dehydrate, and caffeine can be a diuretic, which makes you pee more often. You don't want to do that when you've got the heat exhaustion thing, and alcohol dehydrates you. So avoid those two things, but do get water into them. If you happen to have like Noon tablets or any of the kind of electrolyte drinks, try and get one of those into them. Remove tight or unneeded clothes, because part of the body's natural system, the sweating at first, was one of your defense systems against the heat thing. That condensation of it coming off of your skin cools you down. So it's trying to do that. You remove the tight or unneeded clothing to help it do that. If you have ice or cold packs, again, if you're out there in the backcountry backpacking, you're not going to have that kind of thing, right? You apply under the arms and the neck area to try and get that core temperature down. Now, do remember, you might have the option in the backcountry of a nice cool stream. If you can get bandanas or your buff or something and get that nice and cooled off, put it on their forehead, neck area, underarm area, or you can get them safely to a safe stream. If the stream is running like crazy and it's a hazard just to cross, don't put them in that, because they're too weak to fight a current if they get swept away. But if it's a small stream and it's nice cool water, that helps. If it's in direct sunlight, not so much. So keep those things in mind. So cold compresses, ice packs if you can get them. And then the big thing is, if you don't have any improvement after 15 minutes, you could be looking into some very real danger of heat stroke. And so the big thing is to try and get help. If you're in the backcountry and you have an emergency locator and you just can't get them to respond to any of this treatment, and they're starting to get more and more into heat exhaustion, maybe even unconsciousness, that's an emergency situation. You need to get search and rescue out there to get the professionals out there, and they can bring in things like cold packs and stuff like that to try and get them out. But if you are like on a day hike and you can get them out, then get them out. Get them into your car, air conditioner on, all that kind of thing. Whatever you can do, you got to get that core temperature down. Now, some of the ways to prevent heat exhaustion from even happening in the first place is, number one, be prepared and keep track of what it's going to be like. If you know you're going to be hiking an area that has no cover, and that's part of the research of when you're researching a trail, you look on Google Maps or look at the maps and stuff like that you have available, and you can see that the majority of this trail is wide open. You're going to be exposed to the sun. There's not a whole lot of tree coverage on this trail. Oh, and the weather forecast is for weather in the 90s. Be prepared for some serious heat. Or maybe wait till a cooler day if you have that kind of self-control. I know lately I've seen a lot of examples of hikers who have no self-control. Even in a quarantine, they decide, I'm going to hike where I want and when I want. I'm free. But yeah, sometimes that is the smart decision. Well, I really don't think I can handle a 95-degree direct sunlight hike today, but tomorrow it's supposed to be mid-80s, and if I go out early before it hits that peak weather, I think I can do it then. That kind of thing. Plan ahead is basically it. But barring that, lightweight, light-colored, loose-fitting clothes and a wide-brimmed hat are big tools against it. If you can get a wide-brimmed hat that keeps the sun directly off your scalp, you're your neck area and things like that. The loose fitting clothing lets your body breathe. I know a lot of our base layers for backpacking are tighter fitting, and they allow the body to breathe. They wick. So if you have that kind of material, that's okay. Otherwise, you're trying to go for loose fitting clothing. Light colored, for those of you who don't know, that helps reflect sunlight off better, where darker colors are going to absorb that sunlight, that heat that comes from it more. Okay, so that's why they say lighter colors. You stay hydrated when you're out there on the trail. That's a huge one. It's like, oh, you know, I took a drink, 15 minutes ago. I should be fine. No, you should be taking a drink regularly. Bring enough to drink, including electrolytes, with you, whether it's one of the tablets that you like or one of the drinks or something like that. Make sure you are staying hydrated. That is a huge one to stave off heat exhaustion and, of course, dehydration and things like that. Salt depletion can be one of the causes of heat exhaustion. So again, electrolytes, things like that, because you're losing all of that salt out in your sweat. If you have special health conditions, make sure you're checking with your doctor before you do any of that kind of stuff. And even sometimes consuming more liquids than normal, you need to check with your doctor first. Try to drink extra water before you start the exercise. So those of you who are out there and you know the hiker lingo, you're going to camel up before you even get on the tree, even if it's a day hike. I know it's going to be hot out there. I'm going to be out there for 3-4 hours. I'm going to drink probably 20 ounces is the suggestion by some of the research I did. And about every 20 minutes, you're going to want to do another 8 ounces, so a cup of water or electrolytes. So that's close to half a liter, almost half a liter every 20 minutes. So you see how much they want you to carry? That's quite a bit. Again, when you're backpacking in the backcountry, I know that's going to be tough. Unless you're going through like the Sierras in a certain time of year where there's plenty of water sources that you can just keep filling up that water bottle, and when you have your filter and all that kind of stuff. Other than that, like for a day hike and things, and it's going to be in a dry, like some of the foothills that I like to hike in over here near the Diablo Range and things like that, there's not a whole lot of water sources. There just aren't. I just have to carry a lot of water if I know I'm going to be out there for a long time, because that's 3 half liters, so 1.5 liters, for those of you who can't do the math, an hour. If I'm doing that every 20 minutes or so. Okay, so if I'm out there for 4 hours, that's 12, right? Okay. 12 half liters, so 6 liters of water. That's a lot, but it's what they suggest. So every 20 minutes, you should be doing that. And that's really the big thing about heat exhaustion. The biggest thing is if you see it starting to come on, you absolutely need to take steps immediately to stop it from progressing. You're going to have that major sweating. Maybe you start getting a little bit dizzy, a little disorientated right then and there. You need to do something. You need to get yourself hydrated. You need to get yourself some shade, do a little bit of resting, and then start doing the game where you're walking from shade to shade as best you can. If you're out in the middle of the desert and you got no shade and things like that, you need to just get off the trail. If you're starting to have heat exhaustion issues, just simply drinking some water and electrolytes is not going to stave it off. It'll do it for a little bit. It'll prolong it. But you're eventually going to have more issues. You need to get off the trail. Your body is not handling the heat, and that's just how it is. Get off that trail, go back to it later when there's less heat. It's just as simple as that. Heat exhaustion. You got to take it seriously because it turns into a fatal condition eventually. Either dehydration will kill you or you'll have heat stroke. So it's not something to play around with. That's why I say take care of it immediately as soon as you start seeing signs. All right, that's it. What do you got? Any stories, any anecdotal things? You ever experienced heat exhaustion? Have you helped anybody else with that kind of thing? Let me know as usual. You can comment down below or on Patreon, Instagram, any of the other social media sites that I post things on. And of course, as always, at hikingforhealthca@gmail.com. And that's about it. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.